Good morning. This is Lynanne, and today I'm going to be talking about how and when to use personal stories in your yoga business. So, the question that was asked this week, and actually was asked by two different practitioners, was how much of my personal story should I share with my students? And this came actually around social media. So, what they were concerned about was whether it was an overshare or whether they were actually being too guarded or whether or not they were crossing boundaries or being dramatic, getting involved in drama, or whether or not they were being authentic or not. So I'm going to talk about two different things or two similar things around this topic. One is the power of your personal story, why you would even want to use it, and then how much to share, sort of how to figure out how that feels to what to share as far as your personal story. So as a yoga teacher or any really wellness professional that's in a very personal services sort of industry, especially when it's around emotional and spiritual health, um, now personal stories are extremely powerful. They're really a powerful way that people can relate to you. There's a powerful way in using your experiences to teach them. If you were an alcoholic, you go to AA where there's other people that have lived that. And if you're a parent, you would certainly not go to a bachelor who's never had kids for parenting advice. You'd go to other parents. And there was actually, this is something I think that's sort of a newly developed thing, that when women were sharing their personal stories, especially because way back, a lot of the educational materials were really written just by men, and they didn't really show a women's perspective. And so over time, especially in the 70s in the feminist movement, women were having circles and were speaking of their own personal stories. And so it was really validating women to hear other stories and also to relate based on experience, not on just education. And so it's now has actually evolved, and in the personal services and the expert sort of industry, their personal story is really is even more powerful than a degree, and in a lot of different areas. Sure, there's people have degrees and you need that education, but having to go through it personally is really powerful to be able to teach other people. So the thing is like, what is your personal story? What does that mean? And what I say is really look to that time that you had that sort of aha moment. And it might actually not have been just one moment. It might have been a series of moments. But most of the time when I speak with teachers or anybody, they they literally had that last thing that was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And that kind of pulled them out of whatever gutter or, particular situation that they were. So it's sort of a defining moment. And I asked people about that, whether it's around, for me, it was when my mother passed away, and holding her as she passed, or somebody else might be when they woke up. I had a yoga teacher who was a recovering addict, and realized that they had spiraled back down again after being recovered, and they woke up and they're like, okay, I am just done. And it was just one moment, like they looked across the room, they saw some object or something or their room, and they were just like, okay, now I'm done. And that was their kind of their moment. And so what happens is that's when you've had a bit of a breakthrough. And that's the thing where you can really think about what you were feeling, think about how you got to that place, think about some of the things that you were thinking. And this is a really great piece of your story to teach, and to teach other people who might be going through the same type of experience. So the short answer is, do you share personal stories? And it is yes. Yes, you can. They're teaching stories and can really be helpful for people. But just remember, the next thing is like, how much do you share? How much do you put out there? And with social media right now, just know that whatever you put out there, it's there forever. It's not like it used to be where the paper's gone and you had to go to microfiche and find it from years and years ago, but it's there and people will still search on it for years to come. So really be very mindful about what you want to put out there. But so really, what do you want to put out there? It really depends on your comfort level. Are you comfortable with having this public, or is there something that's still a little private? And one thing that a teacher actually gave me this line I thought was really good, that is that it's personal, not necessarily private. So if something's still private, it can stay private. But if it's personal, it can still be public. But the one defining thing that I think is really about where you are in this story, and my sort of checking point is, are you through the story? Are you through the experience where you can look back from some sort of point of experience versus that you're still in it processing? I think that if you're in it, and the thing is, we're always processing, we're always kind of peeling away the onion of what we're trying to figure out about ourselves and some of our issues that we might be dealing with. But on this one is like, are you through it? And sometimes I know it sounds sort of funny, but it's like, is it a comedy routine yet? Because when you can look back and go, okay, that was crazy and that's sort of funny, then you're probably through it. But if it's still causing a lot of heartache or it's still causing tears, it might still be too tender to really share. And the thing is, if you share it at that point, it actually could become more of a drama or you actually processing with your students. And that's not what you're there for. You're there to teach and lead from example, not while you're in your stuff. Now, we're always in doing our stuffs, but that stuff you should probably, I advise that you still keep that personal. I get a lot of emails from other professionals who are wellness or coaches. And there was one woman in particular that I've been watching or, getting her emails over the last year. And she's been doing a lot of changes. And she's very transparent about it. And I'm sure that really appeals to people. And in some way, like, this is what I learned. But what I've seen is her repeating the same story again. And she's been burning through staff. And while she's been saying things about staff or I need to go find something, I've sort of felt like she threw her staff under the table personally. But she was really sharing the story of her evolution. And for me, it was an overshare. I actually felt that to me, it actually I questioned her ability to really hold space if she was going to be a coach for me. But that's me. Other people might have been thinking, oh, she's really transparent and she's really vulnerable. But I'm telling you, when you put out something, as she did, and the response back was, oh, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. And oh, blah, blah, all of a sudden you've got your clients or your students taking care of you. And that's not what is supposed to be the relationship. The relationship is you're the teacher, they're the student, you're supposed to be taking care of them. So the thing I think of also is, yoga crosses into the physical health, the mental health, the emotional health, and the spiritual health. Those three: physical, emotional, and spiritual. And all of those have their own kind of mainstream practitioners, whether they're MDs or NDs, doctors, spiritual leaders and ministers, and therapists are emotional. And think about them. I mean, if you go to a therapist and she starts telling you all of her story that she's in the middle of, how does that make you feel? Does that make it feel like it's about your experience, or she's trying to give you her experience and trying to process with you? So when someone's coming, if I'm coming to pay for a therapist, I want it to be about me, and I want it to be about what my experience. And if she tells me a story that is something to help me about my story, that's worth it. If she's telling me a story that all of a sudden she's in the middle of it and I feel like she's actually coming to me and I'm feeling all of a sudden the caretaker and going, oh, are you okay? Then the tables have turned in that relationship, and that's not something that I'm really paying for as a professional. And you, as a yoga teacher, are not paying for, your students are paying for you to teach them, not for you to process with them. So the idea is, our personal story is powerful and good for your business, absolutely. And be discerning about how much of your personal story, when and where you share it, and at what time in that personal story you should be done with it and have it as a teaching lesson and a teaching tool. So that's what I have to say about personal stories. You can find more information about my company and what I do with yoga, what me and my colleagues do with yoga teachers and wellness experts at www.yonispeaks.com. Have a great, wonderful day. Be well.